This is the tale of the Vikings, fierce warriors, relentless raiders, and cold-blooded kings of the sea. Let's take it back to the late 700s AD, way up north in the cold, rugged lands of what we now call Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. There lived a people carved from the ice and stone of their homeland. The winters were brutal. The soil was poor. Life wasn't handed to you, you took it. Now, the Vikings weren't born into wealth or castles. They were farmers, blacksmiths, shipbuilders. But when the crops failed or opportunity called, they didn't sit and wait for fortune to find them. No, they went out and raided it. The word Viking isn't a name for a race or a country. It was a verb. To go a Viking meant to leave home and seek out glory, gold, or vengeance across the sea. And that's exactly what they did. The first lightning strike of their fury hit in 793 AD, when longships appeared off the coast of England at a monastery called Lindisfarne. The monks there had never seen anything like it. Fast ships with dragon heads on the bow, and out of them came bearded men with axes, shouting war cries. They looted the church, burned what they didn't want, killed those who resisted, and vanished before anyone could stop them. Europe trembled, and that was just the beginning. Over the next few centuries, the Vikings hit like a hurricane. They raided the coasts of England, Ireland, France. They sailed down Russian rivers, traded in Baghdad, fought in Constantinople, and even set foot in North America, 500 years before Columbus. But let's talk about what made them so feared. Not just where they went, but how they fought. The Vikings were not orderly soldiers in tight ranks. They didn't wear shiny plate armor or march to drums. They were fast, brutal, and direct. When they came ashore, they moved like a pack of wolves. Quick, chaotic, deadly. Their weapon of choice? The axe. Not the big, clunky ones you see in cartoons, but smaller, single-handed axes, sharp and easy to swing. Light enough to be thrown, heavy enough to crack skulls. These axes weren't just tools, they were family heirlooms, battle-forged and blood-soaked. Some carried swords, rare and expensive, often passed down through generations. These blades were engraved with runes, believed to hold magic or fate. A Viking sword was a symbol of honor, and sometimes even named, like a loyal companion. And always the round shield, a wooden disc, often painted with bright colors, rimmed with iron. It was more than protection. In battle, Vikings formed a shield wall, tight lines of warriors locking their shields together, creating a moving fortress. Behind it, they stabbed with spears, swung axes, and held their line with sheer grit. Now among them, there were the berserkers. These were the wild ones. Men who wore the pelts of bears or wolves and fought in a trance-like rage. Some say they took mushrooms or herbs to send them into that state. Others believed they were possessed by the gods. Berserkers didn't feel pain. They didn't retreat. They didn't care if they lived or died, as long as they took someone with them. Can you imagine that? You're a soldier, standing in formation, and from the other side charges a man with wild eyes, roaring like an animal, covered in blood, swinging an axe as if the gods themselves are pushing him forward. That's enough to break even the strongest line. But the Vikings didn't just win by brutality. They were smart. Their long ships were technological marvels. Long, narrow, with shallow bottoms. That meant they could sail across the ocean and up shallow rivers. They could strike deep inland, where no one expected them, hit hard, then vanish into the mist before the local lord could gather his army. Fear was a weapon too. The mere sight of a Viking sail was enough to make villages flee before the first axe was swung. But here's the twist. Not all Vikings were raiders. Many were settlers, traders, and explorers. They founded cities like Dublin and York, built kingdoms in places like Normandy, named after the Northmen, and influenced the politics and bloodlines of Europe. They were also poets and storytellers. Their sagas told of gods, monsters, and heroes, of Thor's mighty hammer, of Odin's wisdom, of the end of the world, Ragnarok. But even in their stories, war was always central. Valor in battle was the highest honor. To die with a sword in your hand meant you'd be welcomed into Valhalla, the great hall of slain warriors, where you'd feast with the gods until the final battle. By the 11th century, the Viking Age began to fade. Christianity spread. Kings grew stronger. The wild independence of the Viking war bands gave way to order, law, and borders. But their legacy, it never died. You still see it in the languages we speak, in place names across England and beyond, in modern military tactics, in literature, and in pop culture. And for some, maybe for all of us, it's in that part of the human spirit that longs for adventure, that craves the unknown, that's willing to risk everything for glory. That was the Viking way. So the next time you hear thunder rolling in from the sea, think of the longships cutting through the waves. Think of the warriors sharpening their axes by firelight. Think of the fury, the honor, the blood in the storm. That was the world of the Vikings.